Other interesting culture news, you have Porsche saving the stick shift, aka the third pedal, aka also known as the best automotive experience you will ever enjoy in your life. I may or may not be just be a little bit passionate about this particular cultural phenomenon. It's one of those things where I've only ever owned stick shifts, and I will be perhaps the last person who will still want to drive one years from now, even if I have to take a shovel and dig up oil in the backyard. Unfortunately, I rent, so I don't really have the mineral rights to where I'm living at right now. So, life goals, gotta get there someday. Now, this comes from Porsche saying that they're working hard to, quote, save the manuals on the 911 and the 718. This is coming from Porsche's Frank Mosier, saying that the company is intending to keep offering manuals as long as the current sports cars exist, which, again, is phenomenal news. If you look at, unfortunately, it's heartbreaking, most cars, they've actually done away with the best optimal driving experience. They've acquiesced to computers and just going with the old-fashioned, going with automatic transmissions, also known as two pedals, also known as the most boring thing you could possibly do with your life. And some people might argue, well, what if you're in bumper-to-bumper traffic? Embrace it. It will make you pay more attention. You can't text and drive. You can't eat a double wide banana falcon, double whopper, whatever they're selling these days at the fast food places. You are one with the vehicle. You are in the experience and the privilege of driving. Make the most of it. Every single second. It's so much fun. But most companies are acquiescing and Americans are lazy and they don't want to do that. So that's why most sports cars now, they're automatic only. Or EVs, which is not a topic for another time in terms of finding that just viscerally abhorrent in terms of a sports car. But you have the new Camaro. Oh, actually that's going to be an EV sedan apparently because they killed that because GM doesn't like making money apparently. You have the Corvette, which for decades was a piece of beautiful American manufacturing made in good old Kentucky. And it was made with 3 pedals, a manual transmission, and a V8. It is a beautiful piece of Americana. Akin to apple pie and Chevrolet. Although, hilariously enough, Chevrolet is actually named after a French race car driver when Billy Durant actually teamed up with him to rebuy General Motors when they went bankrupt the first time he lost company. Nevertheless, it was a great experience. And then they decided, well, you know what? 20% of our customers, screw them, we don't care about them. We're going to go automatic only. We're going to acquiesce to that trend and have a soulless driving experience subsequently. So they went automatic. Pretty much, Ferrari and Lamborghini decades ago decided they want to go with automatic transmissions as well. They used to be known for making beautiful sports cars. Now, it's no coincidence that a manual Lamborghini LP640 is $1 million vehicle. Granted, it's, even being decades old, it's worth 3 to 4 times more than the same vehicle that had an automatic transmission. Because enthusiasts love the experience. It's a rare thing. So nowadays, think about it. Ferrari? No. Lamborghini? No. Chevy Corvette? No. Maserati? Hell no. It's been way long for them. How many sports cars are really left? Yeah, those are the main, those are probably the main. McLaren, they haven't been good since the McLaren F1, which some might say is most arguably the best sports car ever made. It actually had a seat in the middle and a good old stick shift and a V12, which is a beautiful thing in and of itself. 12 cylinders of beauty and perfection. That is amazing. Now, nevertheless, going back to the actual article, Porsche, admittedly, a couple years back, when the automatic transmission first came out in terms of the German engineers did get to the point where it was faster than the manual transmission in terms of the driving the 0-60 time. And at the time, Porsche thought everyone cares about speed, so we're just going to kill the manual transmission. We're going to go all automatics. Consumers were so viscerally disgusted with that mistake on their part. They wrote letters. They called Porsche. They said, hey, I want my 911 with a stick shift. I'm not buying it for the 0-60 time. I want to have fun. And to Porsche's credit, unlike most automotive companies, they did the most important thing in business. They listened to their customer. And Porsche said, and they just reaffirmed, they will keep making those iconic vehicles with a stick shift as long as possible, even as governments bully every company to go EV. Now, it looks like this is coming from because a roundtable interview that is attended by, and this article comes from a business called The Drive, which, A+ for marketing, you know what they're into. And Porsche 911 and 718 boss Frank Mosier said that not only will the brand continue to sell the vehicles with manuals, but it hopes to do so until the end of the generation of the Porsche sports cars. That's key because the ever-tightening emission regulations have threatened to kill the third pedal in some models even more quickly than anticipated, which is true. You saw this with Volkswagen when they subsequently killed the stick shift for the GTI. ridiculous. The Golf, it should always come with a stick shift since it came out in the 70s. It came out with a stick shift. But because of European emissions, and I would argue short-sightedness, virtue signaling, because again, if you look at what's better for the environment, right now I would argue the best thing is an ICE engine, depending on how you get your electricity. It'll also last a quarter century to a million miles if you buy a Japanese internal combustion engine vehicle. I think that's better for the environment than buying a disposable EV every 6 to 8 months or years. But that's just my 3 cents. It used to be 2 cents, but for your hyperinflation, 3 cents it is. Though, still free to click the subscribe button. In the interview, they continued and they said, quote, manual transmissions is always what the customer wants in the 911. So we have been and are working as long as possible to save the manuals. It's absolutely relevant for the 911. That's why the 911T with a manual gear shift and now the 911ST with a stick shift. And that's really because consumers want a stick shift, unquote. And again, I have to applaud North America consumers in terms of when Porsche has talked about this in the past, that is one of the biggest driving markets for a stick shift Porsche. Now, granted, I would argue by default, every car should have 3 pedals, and that would just make the world a little bit better. I think the whole world would smile a little bit more if they knew the experience and they worked hard. Well, perhaps another topic for another time in terms of working hard. Now, it'll be interesting to see how long they can really do this. I mean, there are only a couple stick shifts left these days in terms of fun sports cars. You got, the Ford Mustang, the good one, not that bastardized E-Mach, which is just an EV SUV that they stole the name in a futile attempt to get it to make it a little bit more famous. But the original Mustang, the good old one we like with the V8 and the stick shift, that still exists. They, in my opinion, controversial to say, let me know in the comments, Ford won the Pony Wars. The Pony Wars was when you had all the good pony cars. You had the Camaro, you had the Challenger, the Charger. Well, General Motors in the Infinite Wisdom killed the Camaro. It may come back next year as an EV four-door sedan, which, again, sad. Just let the name die with dignity. So the Camaro's dead. And then the Charger may come back. There's a small rumor it'll come back with a straight 6 engine, which, again, they used to have a V8 like every sports car should. But that one, it's going to be an EV, which, again, EVs have 2 pedals. They're automatic. It's a computer on wheels, also known as heartless or soulless, some might say. So the number of vehicles you can actually get with a stick shift are few and far between if you want a little sport fun. You got the Honda Civic Si, which I might be a little biased, but awesome vehicle. Although even they killed the coupe, which I would argue my coupe's a lot better, but that's just me. You got the Honda Civic Si, the Honda Civic Type R, Ford Mustang, and the BMW M2, Toyota Corolla or Toyota GR Corolla, and the GR86. And then you have the Subaru BRZ, which again it's just it's the same darn thing with different plaques on them. But the number of real sports cars you can get, it's few and far in between. And even with ever-tightening regulations around fuel economy, which again, that's another detrimental thing. It used to be, back in the day, fuel economy was actually better than manual transmission. I believe it was probably about the 80s and the 90s when you had that pivotal moment in engineering where an automatic transmission became more efficient, fuel economy-wise, than a manual transmission. And that's, again, it's another reason the government's trying to kill the manual transmission. I'm not saying I'd be better. I'm not saying I'd make a great president, but I'd certainly be better than some we've had. I know the bar's so low it's basically buried in the ground with a lot of our past presidents, but nevertheless, why not just let the consumer get what they want? Let me know in the comments, do you own a stick shift? Have you ever bought one? Have you ever had that experience? If you want to save a stick shift, you need to buy a stick shift new today. Because again, it's great to buy it on the secondary market, but manufacturers don't care and don't know. Because again, in terms of what revenue is going directly to the manufacturer, it's new vehicles. When you buy a used Honda Civic, it does Honda in Ohio and Honda in Japan, they don't care. I'm not saying I'm great, but I did my part. I bought a new Honda Civic Si. I love it, and I'll drive it till the wheels fall off. I wish I had the revenue and I had the income to purchase a manual transmission new vehicle. Shoot, every month? That'd be fantastic. But again, if everyone just, when the opportunity comes, when you could financially support a new vehicle or heaven forbid get in an accident, when your budget can allow you to purchase a new vehicle, get it with a stick shift as soon as possible. Because we need to send a message that consumers want this. They're choosing this. They need to send a message to manufacturers, hey, GM, because the new Corvette is only automatic and now you're making an electric version as well, I'm not buying it. I'm going to buy a different sports car. I'm going to buy a Porsche. Porsche, again, they're really the only higher-end sports car dedicated to manual transmission. And the older I get, the more I understand It's not so much about the 0 to 60 time. That used to be a phenomenon when we had the internal combustion engines. You had the wars between the manufacturers, the contests, the competitions. We've gotten that already. It's gotten the computer on wheels. That's the fastest thing that's going to be there out there these days. But if you really want the experience, and you don't care if it's got 2,900 horsepower, it's hard to beat a Porsche. So let me know in the comments. Have you ever bought a manual transmission? Have you had the privilege of actually being a part of that experience? And would you ever get one? Or are you going to say you live in the city and it wouldn't make sense? Which I would argue, it would help you pay attention to the road. If you're bumper to bumper, and a good leg workout because you're smashing that clutch. And these days, let's be honest, who couldn't use a little exercise? I think we all could. So it'll be interesting to see how things evolve with Porsche, but I hope that things continue to get better and they keep the dream of the third pedal, the manual transmission, alive. And with your help, I think we might be able to. Thank you again, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of October, so if you can click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, the comments are appreciated as well. We try to make the show better and better and better together. If you like the video, leave up a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you don't like it, and then leave the comments so I actually know how to make the show better for you. And also, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone to stay safe and fight the good fight.